Just days after testing a nuclear-powered cruise missile, Vladimir Putin, the world's very own Lex Luthor, claims Russia has successfully launched another Doomsday weapon, the Poseidon torpedo. Moscow says it can trigger a radioactive tsunami capable of wiping out entire coastlines. Oh, good. So the Burevestnik missile and the Poseidon torpedo. Are these real game-changing weapons, or are they just nuclear theater meant to scare the world? We'll look at the details. Just days after announcing the test launch of the Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile, Putin now claims that Russia has successfully tested the so-called nuclear-powered Poseidon torpedo. Like its skyborne counterpart, the Poseidon system, sometimes referred to as a nuclear super torpedo, is designed to circumvent existing U.S. missile defense systems. But unlike a traditional intercontinental ballistic missile, the Poseidon doesn't travel through the sky. As its name implies, it glides silently beneath the waves. Officially known as the Status 6 Oceanic Multi-Purpose System, which is nowhere near as cool as Poseidon's super torpedo, the Poseidon is a nuclear-powered autonomous torpedo capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, reportedly with yields up to 100 megatons. Now, for those of you keeping score, that's roughly 6 times the power of the largest weapon ever tested, and that would be the Soviet Union's Tsar Bomba. Now, if this wasn't such a serious topic, I'd make a comment like Tsar Bomba would be a great name for a Russian death metal band. But it's a serious topic, so I'll keep that thought to myself. Anyway, according to Russian claims, the torpedo can reach speeds of up to 54 knots, or about 60 miles an hour, and operate at depths approaching 1,000 meters. But the Poseidon isn't designed for a traditional military strike. It's meant to explode underwater just off the coast of major cities. The idea is to trigger a massive radioactive tidal wave, a so-called nuclear tsunami. Some experts believe the Poseidon could even use a cobalt casing, which would spread long-term radioactive contamination across a vast area, rendering coastal cities effectively uninhabitable for decades. During a video conference with members of the Russian government, the braggadocious Putin boasted about the system's destructive power. Isn't he a happy fellow? Saying, quote, "The power of Poseidon far exceeds that of our most advanced intercontinental missile, the Sarmat. There's nothing like it in the world," he added. As we've covered here on the PDB, this announcement does follow news that Russia also tested the Burevestnik, the nuclear-powered cruise missile that can theoretically stay aloft for days, flying under radar and maneuvering around missile defense systems before delivering a nuclear payload. Both the Burevestnik and the Poseidon were first unveiled back in 2018 during Putin's annual State of the Nation address. At the time, he presented them as part of a new generation of invincible weapons designed to outsmart U.S. defenses and reassert Russia's strategic might. Western analysts, though, were skeptical. Many dismissed the projects as overhyped or technically unworkable. But now, with both systems reportedly tested, the Kremlin is trying to show that those skeptics were wrong, that Russia still has the technological edge to compete with Washington and NATO. Now, it's worth remembering that a, quote, successful test doesn't necessarily mean that these weapons are ready for deployment. Russia has a long track record of using military tests as strategic theater, intended as much for propaganda as for proof of capability. Independent verification of these launches is virtually impossible, and past attempts with similar systems have resulted in the past in catastrophic failures and even radiation leaks. So while Putin's rhetoric may sound triumphant, it's likely more about projecting power than actually demonstrating it on the battlefield. And strategically speaking, these weapons don't fundamentally change the nuclear balance. The U.S. and its allies still maintain overwhelming deterrent capability. A nuclear tsunami doesn't actually scream military advantage. It screams intimidation. It's meant to stir fear, to remind the world that even as Russia's conventional forces grind on in Ukraine, suffering staggering losses and struggling to gain additional ground, the Kremlin can still conjure doomsday images of radioactive seas and unstoppable missiles. In that sense, these so-called superweapons are less about the battlefield and more about the headlines. All right, coming up next, after a night of airstrikes across Gaza, Israel's military says it's back to upholding the ceasefire, at least for now. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a moment to talk about personal finances. Now, I suspect that you've noticed the cost of everything is still too high, and many folks now have been relying on credit cards to cover essentials. If that debt is piling up for you, well, you're not alone. Americans collectively owe, get this, over $1 trillion in credit card debt. So, you might have already considered reaching out to my friends over at American Financing, but perhaps you hesitated because you don't want to give up your low mortgage rate. Well, there's good news. The folks at American Financing have created what they're calling the Smart Equity Loan. It's a solution designed to help you take control of your finances without touching your current mortgage. Unlike a HELOC, which can have varied interest rates, the Smart Equity Loan offers a fixed rate, and that means one predictable monthly payment, and that means peace of mind. The loan allows you to leverage the equity in your home to pay off high-interest debt, free up your cash flow, and keep your existing low mortgage rate intact. It only takes about 10 minutes to get started, with no upfront or hidden fees. So call American Financing today and start saving. The number 866-885-1881. Again, that number 866-885-1881. Or just visit americanfinancing.net/PDB. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. I want to provide an update on the Israeli strikes inside Gaza and what's happening in the hours since. As we mentioned on today's PDB, Israeli jets pounded targets across the Strip. Following those strikes, the IDF said it would uphold and reinforce the ceasefire. The strikes, which Israel said targeted some 30 Hamas commanders, came amid a deepening dispute over the terror group's deceptive handover of hostage remains and their scattered attacks on IDF troops. According to Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry, which does have a provable track record of inflating numbers, 104 Palestinians were killed in the strikes, a number that could not be independently verified by Western journalists, many of whom continue to report health ministry claims as fact without any ability to actually fact-check. As we previously discussed, the latest hostilities began in Rafah, where Israeli forces said Hamas militants opened fire on IDF troops with sniper rifles and anti-tank missiles, with reports of one Israeli soldier dead. Hamas continues to deny any involvement, instead accusing Jerusalem of aggression and insisting it remains committed to the truce. Small units of Hamas still operate, though, in Rafah through a web of tunnels beneath the area, allowing the guerrilla attacks against IDF operations to continue. Another flashpoint that led to the Israeli strikes that has further eroded what little trust remains between both sides. Okay, fair enough, there is no trust between both sides, was Jerusalem's accusation of Hamas violating the ceasefire when it returned a coffin containing remains later identified as belonging to a hostage whose body had already been partially recovered back in 2023. Netanyahu's office called it a deliberate act of deception. Shortly after Jerusalem's accusation, the IDF released drone footage showing the Hamas operatives staging the recovery of a hostage's body and later alerting Red Cross officials to the site to simulate an excavation. Jerusalem saw that as proof that Hamas was trying to manufacture evidence for international mediators. Meanwhile, aboard Air Force One, somewhere between Tokyo and Seoul, President Trump became aware of Israel's airstrikes and made it clear Israel was right to hit back, and the ceasefire, he said, was not in danger. The president warned that if Hamas continued its provocations, though, it would be destroyed. But even as Trump spoke, the president's national security team was urging caution behind the scenes. Senior Trump officials told Axios they advised Netanyahu not to take steps that could shove the truce off the edge, emphasizing that Washington's focus was on keeping the ceasefire alive. As we've covered on earlier editions of the PDB, the Trump administration even established a command center in Israel to monitor the ceasefire. They're now working overtime, of course, to keep it from unraveling. Then came a new twist. Israeli officials confirmed that Netanyahu already ordered the strikes before alerting the U.S. The Prime Minister's office later admitted the sequence outright. Netanyahu drafted the decision to retaliate, gave the green light, and only then picked up the phone to inform Washington. And so, of course, the strikes rattle an already fragile peace. Hamas has since responded to the Israeli warplanes by suspending the planned handover of another deceased hostage, warning that, quote, any Zionist escalation will hinder the search and recovery of the bodies. and called on international mediators to pressure Israel to restrain its escalation against Gaza. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Wednesday, the 29th of October. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And, of course, if you'd like to listen to the show ad-free, well, you can do that, and it's very simple. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here, with a great offer from our friends over at Birch Gold Group. Now, listen to this. You can buy gold and get free silver. What's not to like about that? So, for every $5,000 purchased from Birch Gold Group this month in advance of Veterans Day, they'll send you a free patriotic silver round that commemorates the Gadsden and American flags. Look, gold is up some 40% since the beginning of this year, and Birch Gold can help you own it by converting an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Plus, they'll send you free silver honoring our veterans on qualifying purchases. And if you're current or former military, Birch Gold has a special offer just for you. They're waiving custodial fees for the first year on investments of any amount. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, many of whom are PDB listeners, I encourage you to talk with Birch Gold to see if diversifying into gold is right for you. Text PDB to the number 989-898 for a free information kit and to claim your eligibility for free silver with a qualifying purchase before the end of the month. Again, it's simple. Text PDB to 989-898.